Meantime, 6 Californians who have benefited from the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, DACA, are suing the Trump administration for ending it. Their lawsuit claims the administration participated in an illegal bait and switch. They say the government forced them to apply for DACA, giving up personal information to undergo background checks, then terminated the program. They also say the decision was based on an unconstitutional bias against Mexicans and Latinos.
Now, DACA seeks to protect undocumented immigrants who were brought to this country by their parents when they were young. Earlier this month, the Trump administration announced it would end in 6 months, creating turmoil for an estimated 800,000 young people called Dreamers. One quarter, about 200,000, live in California.
Julissa Arce knows what it's like to live in the shadows. Her parents brought her from Mexico to Texas at the age of 11 years old. She eventually got a fake green card and then a job at Goldman Sachs, and now she's an author. She writes about her experience in her book, My Underground American Dream, my true story as an undocumented immigrant who became a Wall Street executive. The book, by the way, out on paperback today. Julissa Arce is with us now here in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, what was your reaction to President Trump's decision to end the DACA program?
Yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate because, I think one of the things from the campaign was that, he said that he was going to treat Dreamers with heart and with compassion. Ivanka Trump actually tweeted before her dad announced about my story and how much she loved my story. And what's really unfortunate about the politics that are involved here is that there are 800,000 Americans who are Americans in every way but papers that are at stake, and that's what I'm focused on, is how do we make sure that we protect this 800,000 people from deportation and to make sure that they can continue to live their lives and work legally, because what DACA did is allowed them to work legally in the country.
But even you have some supporters, and you even saw Nancy Pelosi there. She got shouted down. Senator Dianne Feinstein said that really DACA was on shaky legal ground because it was an executive action. And then people were going to, you had attorneys general who were going to sue and maybe upend DACA. So is it not the right way to have Congress actually come up with legislation to give and make these dreamers whole instead of pushing DACA, which only seems like a temporary fix anyway?
Yeah, as I talk about in my book, in 2001, the DREAM Act was introduced for the first time. So this is 16 years ago, when I was a freshman in college, that the DREAM Act was first introduced to protect people like myself who came here when we were children, who have to go through like incredible background checks and who have to have a GED, serve in the military or work, right? And so yes, I agree with you that there should be a legislative permanent solution. The problem is that we've been at this since 2001. Right? So for 16 years, we've tried to get Congress to pass a legislative solution. So DACA was a result of Congress' inability to act and to provide a legislative solution. But here we are now, 16 years later. DACA allowed 800,000 people, as I said, to work, to contribute to their communities more fully, to not have to live in the shadows. And they came out of the shadows and provided all of that personal information on the faith that they would be allowed to continue to stay and work. But where we are now is DACA has been rescinded, so DACA is no longer going to be available, and we do have to continue to focus on.
But he did say he would look back at it if it was, if it got to that point.
So President Trump has even angered some in his own base, working with Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to come up with the DREAM Act and to make a compromise.
Yes, I think that he's angered people on both sides of the aisle, and I think immigration is a very complex issue. I mean, you see these young dreamers. Some of them don't even like to be called dreamers, but you see these young immigrants protesting Nancy Pelosi, and the reason they're doing that is because they're saying, we don't want to just be protected. We want our parents to also be protected. I don't want to get a green card if that means that my parent is going to get deported, right? And so I understand that. I mean, today is the 10-year anniversary that my dad passed away, and I didn't get to see him alive again because I couldn't go to Mexico because I was undocumented. And I would have given anything to be able to still have seen my father and to be by his bedside when in his last moments.
But do you see a compromise? I mean, do you see a compromise, at least initially? I mean, if it's 16 years now, if they do protect the dreamers, and then there is, let's say, what they suggest perhaps more border security, enhanced border security measures, that sort of thing. Is that something that would be acceptable, do you think, for some of the Dreamers?
Yeah, I'm careful not to speak for all of the Dreamers because I think that different people have different ideas of what a good compromise would look like. I do tend to be a little bit more pragmatic in the sense that I understand that there does need to be some sort of compromise, right? And I understand that, and I hope that that what isn't traded away is we are going to give the Dreamers a pathway, but we're going to deport everyone else. Like that, I think, is not a starting point.
All right.
Julissa Arce, thank you for your time
Thank you for
today.
having me.
And Julissa will be signing her book Friday night at 7 o'clock at the Pico Youth and Family Center. The address is 715 Pico Boulevard in Santa Monica.
Thanks for
Thank you
coming
for having
in.
me.
Congrats on the book.
Thank you.